Well, I'm joined now by the Conservative MP for Havant, Alan Mack, who voted to remain part of the EU, but is now going to tell me that he fully backs Theresa May and this new cabinet and government.
Well, last June, the British people voted to leave the European Union. As a Democrat, we respect that, and as a party and a government, we're going to deliver that. We've said that we've got some very clear frameworks in our white paper about what priorities we want to achieve. But obviously, we didn't win the election, which is disappointing.
But you're talking as though you did.
Well, we're disappointed we didn't get the majority we wanted, but we're determined to get on with the job of government, make sure we deliver Brexit, and obviously we're in negotiations with our friends and allies from the DUP to make sure we have a strong, certain government to make sure we can deliver for the people.
The difficulty with all that you've said is that those negotiations with the DUP are still underway, and they're clearly going to be much more difficult than people thought, that you don't have the majority, that the Queen's speech is now to be delayed, that talks with the European Union begin on Monday, and everything is up in the air and appears rather chaotic.
Well, we won the most votes, we won the biggest number of seats, we're not that far off an overall majority, which is why we've started immediately to get on with the business of government, making sure we talk with the DUP. They have an important role to play in this, and that's why I'm determined to make sure that the government is going to get a good position. We make sure that we can start negotiations next week in a strong position.
But you're not in a strong position.
Well, I think we're doing the best that we can in this situation.
Because you're not in a strong position.
Well, I think we are in a good position. We didn't win the election, we're disappointed by that, but we won the most votes. We had biggest share of the vote for a long time. We've taken seats that we haven't captured for a long time, and we've obviously got on with the business of government, and that's the important thing.
But hang on, you haven't got on with the business of government. There is no government going on. You've got a Prime Minister who's a hole below the waterline, many people are saying. Dead man walking, says your own former Chancellor. Things are not as clear-cut as you would appear to be suggesting.
Well, we've had a cabinet reshuffle, we've appointed a really strong, experienced team, we've brought back people like Michael Gove, we've got David Davis, Liam Fox, but also people like Damien Green, the Chancellor in position. So we've got on with the business of government, we've started negotiations, they're going well, and obviously we hope to bring forward a Queen's speech in due course.
When you say they're going well, when Theresa May walks into that cabinet meeting room behind us at the 1922 committee, what sort of reception do you think she'll get?
Well, I think we're very keen to make sure that we support the Prime Minister. We are determined to get on with the business of government. We've got to reflect on the election as well, but actually, more importantly, we have to govern in the national interest. And what this meeting is about is making sure that we learn those lessons, but actually we're determined to make sure we have a strong government, to make sure that when we start our Brexit negotiations, we have a strong position.
Forgive me, it's a bit like listening to the Prime Minister when she came back from the palace and said we're going to get on with the government, as though nothing had happened, as though the election hadn't been lost. Which effectively, she has no overall majority. She is not in the position of government until she has a deal with the DUP. You can say we're in the business of government as much as you like, but until you've got that deal, you're not.
Well, I said, I think we're disappointed we didn't get the majority we wanted, and as a party, we have to reflect on that, and we will be doing. The Prime Minister's expressed sorrow for the colleagues that lost their seats, and as a party internally, we'll look at what went wrong, what went right, but we've got to make sure that we govern in the national interest. That's more important than our party interest. The national interest is what matters, and that's what we're focusing on at the meeting this afternoon.
I just want to have a look at, we've got pictures from inside the cabinet meeting. The reshuffled cabinet has been convening since 2 o'clock. There we are, with Michael Gove and others. Theresa May looking fairly relaxed. Oh, to be a fly on the wall for the meeting when the cameras were moved out. I just wonder whether you have all realised that if you don't give the Prime Minister the backing, you could all be out of a job by the end of the year because there could be another election.
Well, our job is to make sure that we form a strong and stable government, to make sure we deliver for the people.
Are you really still saying strong and stable?
Well, our job is to provide certainty. Look, it's been a tumultuous election.
I'm sorry to laugh, but, you know, we're in a country where if you talk to anybody at the weekend, people are quite worried. The 3 words you will not have heard were strong, stable and certainty. Those 3 things that we don't have.
Well, I think we've come through, a tough election period. I've said we're disappointed by the fact we didn't get a majority.
You must be more than disappointed.
But our objective now is to make sure we govern in the interest of the whole country. Put aside our party interests. We've got to analyse where things went right and where things went wrong. But what's important is we get off to a good start with the Brexit negotiations, govern in the national interest. We've had the cabinet confirmed, and we're looking forward to making sure we put our best foot forward and get a good deal with the DUP as well.
Is this a speech you've all been given to read out? Because it sounds very formulaic, very put together, and not actually bearing much relation to the atmosphere here in Westminster at the moment, which is, let's face it, febrile, chaotic, uncertain. We've had the Queen's speech delayed for the first time in history. This is not a period of certainty and stability.
Well, what we've got to do is to get on with making sure we have the government that we need. We've got to make sure the conversations I've had with colleagues in Parliament, we've got back to Westminster today, is that people are determined to make sure that we're putting our best foot forward, we get a good deal, and actually we put the election to one side about what went right, what went wrong. What's important is the national interest, and that's why we're pressing forward with our negotiations with the DUP, and obviously starting Brexit negotiations next week in a strong position.
Alan, forgive me, I don't know where you've been for the last few days. That is not the feeling out in the country. And that we have a Conservative majority, absolutely, I give you that, but not a majority where you can run things. You've got a Prime Minister who is, as far as anybody can see, in difficulty. And yet you're talking about, here we are, we're going to move on, Brexit talks are happening on Monday, everything's as it should be. This is not the Monday that you would have wished for last Thursday.
What we have to do is be pragmatic and sensible, and what we are doing is that we've won the biggest share of the votes, we've got the biggest number of seats, and our job is to now bring together a government that can govern in an interest of the whole country. That's why we started those negotiations with the DUP, and that's why we're going to proceed with Brexit negotiations to make sure we deliver on the will of the people from last June's referendum.
What are you prepared to offer the DUP, you think, to make that happen?
Well, I'm not privy to the specifics of the negotiations, that's for the Prime Minister to lead, but I think what we have got is a very strong white paper that we released last year about the framework that we want for the negotiations with the EU. We want the DUP to be part of that. Obviously, we have a long-standing and very good relationship with them. Many of those are people that we talk to and work with on a day-to-day basis in Parliament, so I'm very confident we're going to get a good deal, but what's important is to get a good deal for the whole country, not just the Conservative Party, but the whole country. We've got important negotiations starting next week, and we need to make sure we're in the strongest possible position.
Alan, thank you very much. Alan Mack, thank you very much for your time. Thanks for joining us.